Hey, this is Dr. Barry. For the next few minutes, I want to discuss with you something very important. If you've been told by your healthcare provider that you have a touch of sugar, or if you've caught a few blood sugar readings at home that were a little bit high, but not too high, I want to talk with you about prediabetes or borderline prediabetes. A lot of healthcare providers will call this a touch of sugar. Oh, you've got a touch of sugar, it's no big deal, and they'll give you some terrible dietary advice. They probably won't even check all the blood tests that you need checked to clearly figure out how pre-diabetic you are. And then they'll say, okay, I'll see you next year and see how things are doing. This is terrible, dangerous advice, and I want you to know better than this so that you don't fall prey to this should you be diagnosed with a touch of sugar. Now, if you know someone who has a touch of sugar or prediabetes or borderline diabetes, please consider sharing this video with them. Many people with a touch of sugar don't realize how dangerous it is to have prediabetes and not be doing anything about it. I want to talk about this, and I want you to help me reach these people by sharing this video either on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. Send an email, but help me get this message out there because there are literally millions of people who have prediabetes or borderline prediabetes, and they've just been told they have a touch of sugar and it's no big deal. Not true. Help me help them. Now, let's talk about this. Many docs will say prediabetes is not that big of a deal. You've got a touch of sugar, just don't worry about it, and I'll see you next year. This is terrible advice, and I want to tell you what you should know about this and what you should do about this to protect you and to protect your loved ones from pre-diabetes. I'm going to tell you at the very end of this video the lab tests that you should ask for or demand, depending on how your relationship with your doctor is, so that you know exactly how bad your pre-diabetes is. And then you'll also be able to follow it as you reverse it by eating the proper diet, which I'll tell you about below. So, first of all, let's talk about the symptoms of prediabetes. The most dangerous symptom of all is no symptoms. That's right. You can have no symptoms whatsoever. You can feel fine and have dangerous prediabetes. And that's the most dangerous symptom. And that's why I encourage everybody over the age of 35 or 40 to use your mom or your aunt or your brother's blood sugar machine and check your blood sugar 1 hour after you've eaten a big meal. If your blood sugar is above 140, you've got prediabetes. You've got a touch of sugar, and then all of what I'm about to tell you applies. Now, other symptoms that you may actually notice is that you may be thirsty all the time. You may want to drink water constantly, or at least a lot more than you used to. Can be a big sign of prediabetes. You may be achy all over when you first wake up in the morning, just have extra aches either in your joints or in your muscles. This is not normal. Even if you're in your 50s, you shouldn't have that much achiness. That can be a sign of prediabetes or other things. If you have burning or tingling in your fingers, your feet, or your toes, that can be a huge symptom that there's nerve damage already from your prediabetes. You need to go see your healthcare provider and get this checked immediately. If you have blurry vision that seems to get better or worse from day to day with no real pattern, that can be a sign of prediabetes. It almost certainly will get worse after you've eaten a lot of carbs, but we'll talk about that later. But it seems to you like it's just random. Like, I don't know, some days my vision's very blurry. Then also, if you just have fatigue most days of the week, you're just tired, even though it seems like you slept well, that can be a symptom to look for as well. Now, let's talk about signs that you can actually see. One of the most important is acanthosis nigricans. It looks like a dark callus on your neck or under your arms or even in your between your legs and your groin area. And just like, I don't know, I've got this dark callus on my neck. That's a huge sign that you have metabolic syndrome and probably prediabetes, and you need to go to your healthcare provider and demand the tests that I'm going to tell you at the end of this video. Also, if you have very slow wound healing, like you get a little cut that in the past would be healed in a day or two or three. Now it takes weeks and weeks for that cut to get better, especially down on your legs or your feet. That's a huge sign that you may be pre-diabetic. You may have a touch of sugar. Also, if you just urinate all the time, much more than you used to, that can be a sign of prediabetes. The problem is that most healthcare providers, most doctors will say that it's not a big deal. Don't worry too much about it. And they'll give you terrible dietary advice and then kind of just turn you back out into the wild. But what I want you to understand more than anything else in this video is that if you have a touch of sugar, if you have borderline diabetes, pre-diabetes, there is permanent damage being done right now to the tiny nerves and the tiny arteries in your body, damage that can probably never be undone. It's very, very important you take charge of your prediabetes and reverse it before it ever becomes diabetes. Many doctors believe, and almost all people believe, that there's no damage done until you get diabetes. Absolutely false. That's a big fat lie that your doctor might tell you. I want you to understand the truth, and that's what this video is about. I'm going to link to a study and a couple of articles down below in the show notes that will go into further detail explaining to you that even though a lot of doctors don't know this, damage is absolutely being done, some damage which you can never undo. Now, if you've been diagnosed with a touch of sugar or prediabetes, what should you do? The old advice was stop eating sugar, which I 100% agree with. But then also they would tell you in the same breath to eat more fruit and to eat more whole grains and maybe eat more vegetables. The problem with this advice is that if you eat a big serving of fresh fruit, that's going to spike your blood sugar just as bad as a jelly donut. Yeah, true story. If you eat a big steaming bowl of oatmeal, that's going to spike your blood sugar just as bad as a jelly donut. If you eat a handful of whole grain crackers, that's going to spike your blood sugar just as bad as a chocolate sundae. And so this dietary advice is terrible. You have to know what diet to start eating if you've been diagnosed with a touch of sugar. Now, the new advice is definitely stop sugar, no doubt about it. But you're also going to need to stop all grains because all grains, whether it's rice, oats, corn, wheat, quinoa, amaranth, millet, rye, all of these things convert immediately to fructose and glucose, which are sugars. So they're going to spike your blood sugar almost as bad as that dessert that you already know that you should stop eating. And so don't be fooled by this. You have to stop all sugars, yes, but you also have to stop all grains as well. Most people with a touch of sugar or prediabetes have to stop most fruit. Most pre-diabetics can still eat some vegetables. The less cooked they are, the better. But you can still eat some vegetables, but you gotta stop the fruit more than likely, or make it just a rare treat. And so I have multiple videos on this channel, and I'm going to link either here and here to my Keto 101 series. If you have a touch of sugar and you want to learn what diet should I actually eat to keep it from ever turning into type 2 diabetes, and also quite probably to completely reverse it, you want to eat a low carb, high healthy fat, or a ketogenic or a carnivore diet. Even Atkins diet will help you prevent your prediabetes from ever becoming type 2 diabetes, which it almost certainly will if you don't take charge of your diet. And so I've got multiple videos on this channel, and I'll link to those. You'll see them pop up towards the end of this video. Now let's talk about the lab tests that you should ask nicely for at first. But if that doesn't work, then you need to demand these lab tests because they're going to tell you exactly how pre-diabetic you are, and then also help you gauge when you recheck them in 3 or 6 months if your pre-diabetes is getting better or worse. Here are the tests. Are you ready to write this down? You can stop the video if you need to and then start it back up. So you need multiple tests, but I want to focus on just the ones that you need for this particular concern. I talk about other lab tests and other videos on this channel, but you need a complete metabolic panel. This is usually abbreviated as a CMP. That's going to give you a great look at if your liver's already been damaged or if your kidneys have already been damaged. You need to ask for a hemoglobin A1C. This is going to tell you what degree of prediabetes you have. If your A1C test comes back even 1/10 of a point above the normal range, then you are prediabetic. The higher it goes above that, the more prediabetic you are. And so you want your A1C to be 5.6 or less. If it's 5.7 or above, you're at least prediabetic. If it's 6.5 or above, you have type 2 diabetes. Don't worry about that. fix it. And you can do that by watching my videos. The next test is a C-peptide. This gives us an indication of how much insulin your pancreas is having to make to keep your blood sugar within normal limits. And so if you have a normal A1C, but your C-peptide is even 1/10 of a point above the normal range, then you have prediabetes. You have insulin resistance. You are moving towards becoming a pre-diabetic, and you need to start eating a low-carb, keto, carnivore Atkins diet to keep that from getting worse. The last test is a fasting insulin test. Now, if you're already diabetic and giving yourself insulin, this test won't help you any. But if you're not on any diabetic medications, this will give you a great indication of, is your pancreas having to work double time in order to keep your blood sugar within the normal range. Now, that's the labs to ask for. And like I said, you can ask nicely to start with, but if that doesn't work, you need to demand them. If your doctor flat out refuses, then there are actually online lab testing services that you can request these tests from. And I'll put a link down in the show notes below so that you can get these labs checked if your doctor just flat out refuses to do them. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking that subscribe button right down there, and there's a little bell button right beside it. Click that too. So every time I get a bright idea, you'll be one of the very first to know. And also, if these videos have helped your health in any way, please consider becoming a patron. You can sign up below at my Patreon link. It's a quick sign up, and you can throw a buck or two my way to help me have more time to make more videos just like this. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.